Have you ever stopped to think about how a computer actually thinks? I don't just mean crunching numbers, but how it makes a choice, a decision. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the logic that gives code a brain, letting it make decisions just like you and I do every single day.
I mean, just think about this morning. You're standing there, looking at your clothes. How do you actually decide what to put on? You don't just grab stuff randomly, right? Your brain is running this super fast little program based on a few key things.
You might glance out the window and your brain just automatically goes, okay, if it's raining, then I'll take an umbrella. And that simple if-then idea, that's the core of all decision-making for us and for the code we write.
So that if-then logic is exactly what we're going to build. This brings us to our first section, code that makes choices. This is the moment we stop giving our program a simple to-do list and actually start giving it a brain.
The fancy term for this in programming is conditional statements. And really, it's a simple idea. We just tell Python what to do when something is true, and maybe what to do if it's false. This is the absolute foundation for making your code smart.
All right, let's get our hands dirty. We're going to start with the most basic, most fundamental tool in our coding toolbox for making decisions, the simple if statement.
Okay, take a look at this. First, we're making a little container, a variable called age, and we're putting the number 6 in it. Then comes the good part, the if statement. We are literally asking Python a yes or no question. Hey, Python, is the number inside our age variable greater than or equal to 5?
So, what's going on inside Python's brain here? First, it looks at our question. Is 6 greater than or equal to 5? Yep, it is, so the condition is true. And because it's true, Python says, okay, I'll run the code that's tucked in right underneath, and it prints, you can go to school. Simple as that.
Now you see that little bit of empty space before the word print? That is so important. It's called indentation. In a lot of other programming languages, it's just for looks, but in Python, oh no, it's a strict rule. It's how Python knows that line of code belongs to the if statement above it.
And this shows you exactly what I mean. On the left, with the right spacing, the print statement is part of the if block. It works perfectly. But on the right, without that space, Python gets totally confused and just throws an error. So you have to remember the rule. Get that indentation right. A single tab or 4 spaces is the way to go.
Okay, that's great when our condition is true, but what happens if it's false? What then? Well, that brings us to section 3. Let's add an else for our plan B. So let's switch it up. Now our age is 3. The if statement still asks the same question, but this time we've added an else block. Think of this as the backup plan. The code under else is only going to run if that first if condition turns out to be false. So here's the new path. Python checks, is 3 greater than or equal to 5? Nope, that's false. Because it's false, Python completely skips over the code inside the if block. It just ignores it. Instead, it jumps straight down to the else block and runs that code instead, printing you are too young. And here's the key takeaway. It's always one or the other. It will never, ever run both. But hey, life isn't always a simple yes or no, right? Sometimes you have lots of different possibilities. And that's what section 4 is all about, handling multiple choices with something called elif. So imagine we're grading a test and the score is 85. We can use elif, which is really just short for else if, to create a whole chain of checks. The code first checks if the score is an A. If not, elif it's a B. And if that's not true either, it just falls back to the final else for a C. This breaks down Python's thought process perfectly. It goes from the top down. First, it checks the if. Is 85 greater than or equal to 90? False. So it moves on. Next, it checks the elif. Is 85 greater than or equal to 75? True. So it runs that code, printing grade B. And then, and this is the crucial part, it stops. Its job is done. It doesn't even bother looking at the else statement.
All right, let's kick things up a notch and make our decisions a little more sophisticated. On to section 5, writing smarter conditions, because sometimes just one check isn't quite enough.
You know how roller coasters work. You usually have to be old enough and tall enough. Well, in Python, the AND operator is perfect for that. This code checks if the age is 6 or more and if the height is 110 or more. Both of those things have to be true for you to get the green light. If even one is false, the whole thing is false.
So far, we've been the ones putting the numbers directly into our code. But the real magic, the real fun, begins when a program can react to a real person. Let's level up and see how to make our code truly interactive.
The secret ingredient here is this little function called input.
What it does is pause the program, show a message on the screen, and just wait for the user to type something in. Now, whatever they type comes in as text, so we use int to turn that text into a number. Then we just store it in our age variable, and our good old if-else logic takes it from there.
And that right there, that's the whole point. Our program is no longer stuck in one state. It's dynamic. One person can run it and type 25, the next person can type 15, and the program gives the right answer every single time. It adapts to literally anyone who uses it.
All right, let's do a super quick recap. The if statement is your main check. Else is your backup plan for when that check is false. Elif is your go-to for checking a bunch of different things in a row. And please, please remember that four-space indentation is not optional. These are the tools that let your program actually think.
So there you have it. We've seen how to give our code a basic brain, how to let it make choices based on rules, and even how to make it react to people. So I'll just leave you with one question. Now that you can teach Python how to decide, what are you going to build first?